Welcome to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. If you have problems with the IRS, don't focus on the negative, focus on the solutions. With the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish. For over 15 years, he's been helping taxpayers with IRS problems reclaim their lives and their financial stability. Now, here's your host of the IRS Solution Attorney Show, Darrin T. Mish.
Welcome to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. I'm your host, the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish. I'm joined today by my co-host, Katrina Madewell. How you doing, Katrina?
That's me. Doing good. Welcome to the show.
I'm so pumped up today. I'm so excited. One of my dear, lifelong almost friends is here today, Attorney Jim Souza. How you doing, Jim?
Hey, great, Darrin. Thanks a lot. I'd love to be with you and Katrina.
So nice. We had to do it twice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Jim was a guest on Katrina's show last week, and Jim was gracious enough. I like the show so much that I asked him to come in and be with me today. Jim, tell us a little bit about what your practice area is. We're going to depart from what I normally talk about today, because I typically talk about IRS tax problems and how people can solve those. But you help regular people with a different kind of problem, don't you?
Yeah, Darrin, as you know, we both started out together as criminal lawyers, representing people accused of crimes.
Hold on, I'm going to interject right here. I don't like the term criminal lawyer, okay? Because it has a connotation like the lawyer is a criminal. No, criminal defense attorney is the better phrase, I think. So go ahead.
Simply put, we represent people who come into the crosshairs of our government, and we help them manage through and many times get them out of all the harm that the government had bestowed upon them.
So, you brought up something that's sort of interesting. We started out together as fresh-faced, barely needed to shave public defenders in the Hillsborough County Public Defender's Office under Julian Holt.
Are you saying you actually had peach fuzz, Darrin? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that was before I actually had a goatee and a mustache. And Jim and I basically got hired, if not the first day, certainly the first week. And I can remember meeting him, and I was reaching out for a lifeline, kind of. I was kind of looking for someone who knew what was going on. And I'm not sure Jim knew what was going on really either.
We were both faking it. If you recall that, most of the time we would practice on each other.
New kids on the block. I love it.
Yeah, thank goodness we weren't surgeons, right?
Good thing it's an attorney show and not the doctor's show.
But as you remember, Darrin, we represent people who are arrested, and they go through the court system. And many of those people find themselves in a position where their case that was brought against them was either dismissed or terminated, or they simply just didn't do it. And what that led to was creating a practice area in our office that would seal and expunge criminal records. Now, seal and expunge is just a fancy term for removing and erasing an arrest record.
So that's what you do now, right? Is you do some criminal defense, and I want to say this because you're not really allowed to say this. I think that Jim Souza is really one of the most excellent criminal defense attorneys in the Tampa Bay area, if not the state of Florida.
So how does that work from the attorney perspective? You're not allowed to say that to yourself, because I'm not the attorney, so I can say a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you actually have full and unimpinged First Amendment rights. Jim and I don't, actually. We're not allowed to make what we call, what the Florida Bar calls self-laudatory statements. So,
well, I can tell you that I had Jim on my show last week, and I thought he was a rock star, which is no wonder we invited him on the show this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim is a rock star, and he's an excellent attorney. But now you've taken a little bit of a turn in your practice, and you're now focusing on helping people remove and erase their criminal records. Is that right?
Darrin, you hit the nail on the head. It's helping people. Everyone who comes to us, whether we represented them or they were represented by someone else, comes to us with a common pain, and they all ask us to do the same thing. Please remove this arrest record. Please help me restore my name.
Why is it such a big deal? Help us understand why having a criminal arrest or a criminal record is such a negative thing in our society today.
Well, to clear up a few misconceptions, many people think that when a case is dismissed, it goes away. Unfortunately, in the state of Florida, as you know, Darrin, criminal records, arrest records, are public records. That means that anyone can see them. And in this day and age, anyone with access to a computer types in your name, and oftentimes the first thing appears on a Google search or a search engine is the arrest booking photo and the arrest record.
It kind of leads me to this funny story. When I used to do criminal defense work way back in the 90s, someone would call my office, and they'd be charged with a crime, and I would ask them if they had any priors, because that kind of told me how much I should charge them, how difficult the defense was going to be,
or what the prosecutors were going to say to you when you went to see them.
Right. So, an idea what the rap sheet looks like.
Right. How hard the deal was going to be to make and that kind of thing. And before the internet, I mean, I've been practicing law since, before Al Gore invented the internet. We couldn't.
I was going to say before the dinosaur, like the public records were invented, right?
So we couldn't easily look up their arrest records, and so they'd say, "Oh no, man, this is the first time I've ever been in trouble." And then I'd get to the courthouse, and the prosecutor pull out the rap sheet, and it fell to the floor. It was so long. And then once the internet came along, I was able to ask them that same question. They'd still say they had no prior record. I'd say, well, what about this prior possession? What about this prior possession? And what about that prior possession? And the point I'm trying to make is all those records are now online on the sheriff's office website. You can see their mugshot. You can see what they were charged with, where they were arrested, where they live, lots of things like that, right?
In this day and age of social media and just with the internet and the web and these arrest records showing up on some of these booking sites, I can see how just one would do a lot more damage than back in the day when you might have a ton, like what you're talking about.
And can you imagine being in a job interview and you're qualified, you're capable, you have the experience, they want to hire you, they're ready to hire you, and somebody sitting at the desk next to you pulls up a booking photo on the worst day or the worst night of your life and says, "Explain this."
Yeah.
It's not going to be a glamour shot, right? None of those mugshot photos are ever the best photo you've taken.
And there are no do-overs.
You get to explain why you were arrested for disorderly conduct, on Bayshore Boulevard during Gasparilla, or urinating in public, or
because you couldn't make it to the bathroom,
or some relatively innocuous offense that probably doesn't even get prosecuted because there's probably not enough resources at the state attorney's office to even go through with it.
We just represented a lady who walked out of a store here in Tampa, that had the security tag attached to it. They went out, the security tag gets off, and mind you, this is an article of clothing that she purchased, has a receipt for. She's tackled by the security folks, and when law enforcement arrives, they charge her with resisting arrest without violence because she wouldn't give them her name.
My mouth is dropping right now. I can imagine what that would be like for me, and that's just insane.
One would think that the receipt should have told everybody what's happening, but unfortunately it didn't.
One would also think that perhaps a lawsuit might be forthcoming for false imprisonment, but that's a different show. I think.
When we get two attorneys in the show.
Yeah, but will that get their picture off the internet?
No, it won't.
That's the whole point. That's what you do, Tim.
Absolutely, and what we find is the same thing. People, they need help. The state has a program, a process that will remove arrest records, but unfortunately, it's very complicated. There are many steps, and very few people can successfully do it on their own.
When you step back and you look at this whole thing from a common sense perspective, and you think about what our forefathers, what they had in mind when they created the judicial system, they never were thinking about the web, right? And these mugshot photos, in reality, you think about how long ago that stuff was written and how much technology has changed the way we live. It's relevant.
But let me ask you, is that going to help you get a job when you say, oh, yes, that's my photo, I did get arrested, but the state dropped the charges because they got it wrong? Give you a case, anybody out there ever rent from furniture from a rental company and it doesn't come back, or there's a mistake? Well, you can be prosecuted in the state of Florida. And Darrin, you and I have represented clients just like that, that are charged with grand theft.
Because they didn't return furniture?
Because there was a mistake by the furniture company. And you're arrested, you're charged with grand theft, and try to get a job with a grand theft charge out there.
That's insane.
I make no bones about this. I'm no bleeding heart liberal, okay? But when I
have to keep that political stuff in check on the show,
When I was doing criminal defense work, I was regularly appalled at how many just really bogus charges came through the system and how much injustice there really is. Now, were there guilty people that I represented? Absolutely. Probably most of them, to be honest with you. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. There was lots of cases like that from big box stores even. We won't name the store, but there's one store in particular that everybody shops at that has the lowest prices, and they have a tendency to overcharge petty thefts all the time. Lots of robberies are actually what I call a petty theft with a push. Very small dollar amount. So let's say a candy bar. and then the kid maybe pushes the security guard on the way out this door as he's trying to run away, and that theft combined with the force is actually technically a robbery. Well, a robbery, we would call that a strong-armed robbery. That robbery takes that petty theft, which is punishable by a maximum of up to 60 days in jail, all the way up to a second-degree felony punishable by a maximum of 15 years in prison. So that's one of the things that I wanted to bring up on the other show.
But also, Darrin, yeah, you're right. But the real world effect is that people are being judged by others who know very little about what happened to them and are simply denying them opportunities, whether it's a job or a place to live or to be able to serve in a charitable organization or to give of themselves. I mean, Darrin, how many times have we seen, and criminal lawyers that are listening out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Criminal defense lawyers know, and people who represent people know what I'm talking when I say this. How many times have you seen the woman shopping at a grocery store or at a large store with a child in a stroller and another child next to them? The little child, unbeknownst to the mother, takes the CDs, takes the thing into the stroller. They're going out.
Hey, Jim, hold that thought. You're listening to IRS Solution Attorney. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a minute. To the IRS Solution Attorney Show with Mr. Darrin T. Mish. I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell. So, Jim, repeat what you were just saying because this is so right on track, and I can relate to this as a mom.
Yeah. No matter where you practice, here in Florida or anywhere else, we encounter clients that have what we consider to be outrageous situations. You have a mom who's got her kids in a stroller in a store. Unbeknownst to the mom, the little girl, little boy, puts things in the stroller with the little child. Security personnel watch it, and the mother goes to a checkout line, pays for the things that she takes. As they're about to leave, security jumps on all of them and charges the mother with shoplifting.
Okay, I have to chime in on that because that's just nuts. Like my little daughter, I'm going to laugh at myself and just throw myself under the bus for a minute. My little daughter, we would joke around and say she was like Klepto Barbie because every time I wasn't paying attention, I'd be on the phone. She would literally pick something up and we would take it back to the store because I had no idea. So I'm like literally having flashbacks, and thank God that didn't happen. I can't even imagine that.
Or I have actually seen something even more common, I think, and that is, people with kids and they give the kids some grapes or some crackers or something while they're in the store to just kind of shut them up and keep them busy, and that they intend to pay for those items at the checkout, and maybe the wrapper falls on the floor or they forget, or maybe they don't even forget, and the store, I've seen many cases where the store retail security will charge those people with petty theft before they even attempt to make it out of the store. So when my kids were small and my wife would be pushing them in the grocery cart, I was like, no, baby, we're not feeding the kids anything we haven't paid for, because I've seen just too many cases like that.
See, and like attorneys, you guys think about that stuff. I don't. Like, for me, it's no big deal because I'm not going to steal anything, so it wouldn't even dawn on me.
And you don't think about it because it's so outrageously ludicrous.
Right.
But it happens time and time again.
Where's the common sense in the statute? That's what I want to know.
Well, the common sense also comes from the explanation. We were just able to explain something, and this is what people can't do on their own. This is why they hire competent, capable attorneys who can give the explanation. Because if you've ever been asked to, on the spot, to tell exactly what happened, you rarely say it well. At the end of the day, people have arrest records out there that shouldn't be seen by others because it gives others an unfair glimpse of what may have happened to them and doesn't allow a person a fair chance at the things that we were talking about.
I mean, that makes sense for a lot of people, even people that know what they're doing, and even myself. Like, I am one of those people that I'm going to be able to answer any question a lot better if I have just a few minutes to think about it versus in the middle of a chaos, mayhem situation like you're talking about.
And that's where our office comes into play. We assist people who have been arrested in trying to get their records sealed and expunged. The state of Florida allows people to remove and erase arrest records in certain situations. If a person had a case dismissed or the state attorney would prosecute, then they may qualify of having their case expunged. Likewise, if they went through a pretrial diversion program and completed it successfully.
Talk about what that is, because most people don't know what a pretrial diversion. I don't even know if I know what that is. Sure. What is that?
It's the state attorney's offices give first-time offenders a chance to go through a mini probation, perform community service. At the end of a time, if they don't commit a new crime, then the state attorney will drop the charge against them. It gives them one free shot at the system, and we usually see it under what we call minor offenses, usually for younger people, and when people take advantage of it, the case is dropped. Now, when a case is dropped, it doesn't go away. We have to go petition the state of Florida to remove that record, and that's where our office comes in to help people.
So when you say it doesn't go away, you mean I can look that up on the clerk's office website, or I can look up the booking photo and
Google
see that
name.
person. I can Google their name, and that stuff will come up?
It'll absolutely come up. And for most people, when they Google their name, the first thing that comes up is an arrest booking photo.
It's that photo where their hair is right in order, right?
Where they look really perfect and
right.
like totally put together.
All
The
their
makeup is all perfect, right?
Especially you guys, right?
Yeah. So what we do, we help people, and if we get a record sealed and expunged, if it comes off of the county sites, if it's taken away from public view, then that gives people a fair chance at obtaining employment. It gives them a fair chance at being able to find a place to live, because Florida law allows people that have their record sealed and expunged to legally deny the arrest.
That's a key point. You should probably chime in on that a little bit more.
And being able to legally deny an arrest in most situations is the difference between getting a job, being able to volunteer and serve with social groups and charitable organizations. Also, it really comes down to whether people get the housing of their choice.
We see it a lot in my space because I do real estate. I'm the only odd person in the room. I'm not the attorney. You know, I help people buy and sell real estate, and we do occasionally help with the rental process. And, you know, there's things that come up. We don't make the decision. We give the owner ultimately the final say. But I can see where a lot of times people can't overlook that because they don't even understand the whole story.
Aren't criminal records starting to impact credit scores even?
No, absolutely. And in fact, the far-reaching effects really mean that an arrest record stays with you for life. And where we're talking about we're taking a sensible approach to let's remove the problem or let's remove the situation entirely. And sealing and expunging a record takes that out of the game.
It almost sounds like you're kind of like a lawyer magician, like so you can make stuff disappear. Is that? I mean, it sounds expensive too. Is it?
No. In fact, well, come to see anybody in asking a lawyer to help you is expensive. But what we've tried to do is we've priced this at $970, $970 inclusive of all fees and costs. If you come to our office listening to this show, tell us you were listening. We'll take $150 off that fee.
And let me chime in on that because you and I talked about this before the show. And with my background, I think public records because we record stuff. If they have something crazy you have to unwind, there's a million pages that could change that fee slightly.
Yeah, in the rare occasion that you went to trial and say you were found not guilty, in Florida you would be allowed to seal that record. Well, the clerk's office charges a fee per page of your entire file. So what we typically do, we will pay up to $100, which covers about 99% of the cases. But if it's beyond that, then you understand there's an additional cost because of the trial or because of the large volume of documents.
I'm just kind of curious what the logistics are behind that because, like, for me, we had a field trip years ago with my kids and we went to the Pioneer Museum, and I could see literally some of the first records, some of the first official records that were recorded in Pasco County. And so I think about, like, I'm always trying to get a visual of what you're talking about. So, like, I guess if you sealed and expunged back in the day, you could just rip that page out, right? So,
Put it in the trash.
What does it look like now? Like, how does that... everything's so digitized. What exactly changes when you seal and expunge?
When a record is sealed, it's hidden from the public view. But that doesn't mean that the record is available to law enforcement and other groups. If a record is expunged, then it's removed entirely, and law enforcement in many cases or other groups would have to get a court order to open it. If you're an individual who's accessing the clerk's website, type in a name, and if it's sealed and expunged, it's not going to appear. And that's what we're doing. We're removing it from the official records, giving people a chance to be able to legally deny the arrest, which they should, under Florida law and gives them a chance to be able to obtain the employment, be able to live where they want to live, and do the things they need to do.
It sounds to me like expunged means sort of kind of erased, and sealed means sort of kind of closed so nobody can see it.
Well, it is, but they are also, there's two different types of requirements that pertain to each. If you were arrested on a charge that's covered in the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's list of charges, if you are arrested and you plead no contest or are found guilty, if a judge does something called withhold adjudication, which means that they don't formally convict you, then you may have an opportunity to seal that record. An expungement can only take place if, as I said before, you have completed a diversion program for first-time offenders to help you out, if the state of Florida discontinues the prosecution, or if a judge grants what they call a judgment of acquittal. So if the case has to be completely dismissed to get it expunged, if you get a withhold of adjudication in certain cases, it can be sealed. But the net effect on either, get your picture off the internet or off the county's websites and get the arrest record taken off as well.
Jim, can you give out your office number so that people know how to reach you?
Sure. You can call us anytime at 813-254-9205. And we talk to you. We don't charge you for the consultation. Many times people call us not thinking that they can qualify. We find a way to make it happen.
And what was that number again?
813-254-9205. Or you can find us on the web at restoremyname.net. That's restoremyname.net.
You're listening to the IRS Solution Attorney Show. It's about that time. We have to take a real quick break. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. We've got some fun stories coming back after the break. Those are always the things that people can relate to. We'll be back in a minute.
Are you suffering from IRS problems? Do you owe back taxes you can't pay? Is your paycheck or bank account being levied? Or maybe you haven't filed tax returns in years and simply don't know what to do. This is Darrin T. Mish to tell you that if you're tired of IRS problems hanging over your head and are ready for a fresh start, we may be able to help. Call the law offices of Darrin T. Mish at 888-GET-MISH, 888-GET-MISH. I can help you file old tax returns, work to release tax liens or stop wage levies, even negotiate deals to pay off back taxes at a discount, sometimes for pennies on the dollar. Hey, let's face it, these days it's not hard to get into tax trouble. A divorce, failed business, health problems, you name it. The point is, IRS problems may be solved if you're willing to take the first step. Call for a free consultation at 888-GET-MISH. That's 888-438-6474. Or go to the web at getirshelp.com, because the one sure thing is, IRS problems don't solve themselves. So get Mish. 888-438-6474. Principal Office, Tampa.
I am the IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin T. Mish.
And I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell. Thanks so much for sticking with us through the break. We have joining us in studio today, Jim Souza.
Attorney Jim Souza, attorney extraordinaire. He focuses on removing and erasing criminal records. Isn't that right?
That's right. And what we do is we're able to help people restore their names that were sullied or put down because of a criminal arrest.
So during the break, we were talking about some pretty interesting stuff, and we were kind of bummed out actually that we weren't running, weren't running tape. So, what can people do? Like, there's a lot of people that I've heard of that get really confused. They look at the statute, they try to understand how they can remove or erase their criminal record or their picture off the internet, and they don't know what to do, and they get really discouraged. What can those people do?
Oftentimes, people call us and they'll say, "I had an arrest, but it went away. But I contacted the clerk's office, or I was told by another lawyer that I could not seal and expunge my record because I had a traffic charge or another charge where I was, quote, adjudicated," meaning that the judge convicted me. And they oftentimes, when they contact us, they don't think there's anything else that can be done. And what I want people to understand is if you have an adjudication, one of them, for something relatively minor, you may still be able to have your record sealed, because oftentimes we can get in front of judges, explain the situation, and they can, with a stroke of a pen, turn that adjudication back to a withhold, which would then make you qualify. So people shouldn't give up on themselves. Contact our office. Tell us your story. 813-254-9205 on restoremyname.net. Contact us. We want to hear what happened to you, because we can provide solutions that you would never, ever dream of.
I would like to chime in on that, too, because sometimes I think, the riches are in the niches. So somebody could ask a question about whatever, but, how many attorneys are like general practice? They're not going to know as much about things that you do every day, or as much as Darrin does when it comes to dealing with the IRS. Would you agree?
Well, we learn something every single day. Last night I was looking at material that I never even knew existed before. You see it in your practice, closing on a house, making a deal work. You're able to anticipate solutions before anyone even knew there was a problem. And that's the same thing in our office. People think, well, this happened to me, so the first reaction is, I don't qualify and I'm not going to look at it. When the reality is, we've been able to resurrect a case, get in front of a judge that's sympathetic, and many times we're even finding that the state attorney's office are doing the right thing, and the prosecutors are standing silent, allowing us to help somebody removing a record that should be justly removed.
What I noticed with you and what I heard in the show last week when we were on air, when we were talking about some of these stories, is that you really care. Like, you were sharing some of these stories, and I could feel it in the room. I could hear it in your voice, how when people are sharing their story, you genuinely care how it impacts their life.
Their lives are our lives. These are our friends. These are our family members. These are our neighbors. These are the people we went to school with. These are the folks we work with. When they have something that hurts them, like an arrest record, and it can be removed, then we should do everything we can. Our community's better off when people are fully employed, when people are allowed to live in the places that they want to live. They're able to get loans and mortgages. Their businesses are able to expand. All of these things are possible when they're able to have a previous record removed, have their name restored. So yeah, we're all affected by it. There are more than 850,000 people are arrested in the state of Florida every year. An arrest record for too many of these people is a lifetime sentence, even after they've paid a debt to society, even if they had pled guilty, gotten a withhold of adjudication. That was done so that they could have a second chance.
What percentage do you think of that number are like stupid little misunderstanding arrests?
Well, if you just said 25% of them, then you're still talking about hundreds of thousands of people. And you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who aren't able to either complete an education, finish school, get a job that they're qualified to be employed in. That hurts companies, and that hurts businesses everywhere. And it also, what it really does in the end is it destroys families. Darrin and I know what the effects and the stigma of being arrested not only affects the individual, it affects their families, their kids. It affects everyone.
And talk about how you guys know each other, because we skipped over this a little bit. I should say we brushed through it at the beginning part of the show. But you guys have known each other for many years.
Yeah, for over 20 years. Jim's actually the godfather to my daughter. I mean, that's how close
Hello,
we
Rachel.
are. And, we're really good buddies. And he is a fine, fine individual. But, we both started out doing criminal defense work. And I always...
Where all attorneys start? Just a curious question.
No, not necessarily. And we started out doing criminal defense work. And for me... I did criminal defense work because I felt proud to just be a cog in the wheel of justice, meaning I felt like my job was to make sure that the police didn't lie. The police followed proper procedures. They did what was supposed to be done, because without criminal defense attorneys, then law enforcement and the state attorney's office can really run roughshod over any individual's rights. And that kind of ties into what I do now with representing people who owe money to the IRS. A lot of people ask me, well, why did you go from criminal defense work to, fighting with the IRS? And I said, well, it's really a very similar kind of practice. And then I usually get a dumbfounded look when I say that. And I say, well, in criminal defense work, I learned the rules, and then I help defend the little guy against the government. Well, in the tax practice, I learned the rules, and I help defend the little guy against the government. And so the only real difference is, in my old practice, we'd fight about prison time or jail time or fines and penalties. And now we just primarily fight over money. So in very many...
Isn't that every attorney's dream, to fight over money? I'm just
So
saying.
only if you get a third of it.
I'm being the funny guy in the room.
Yeah, if I got a third of all the money I help people save with the IRS, I probably wouldn't be working anymore. But that's beside the point. And so in my mind, it's all about sticking up for the little guy against what I perceive to be the big bad government that always abuses its powers when not kept in check. And I know that Jim does what he does for slightly different reasons.
I agree with you that the only way our freedoms are protected is when you have a well-grounded, very astute, very rigorous defense to every government charge. The awesome power of the government coming down on an individual is felt in every courtroom everywhere in the country. Darrin, also, knowing you passionately and vigorously defend people's rights, and you provide zealous representation. And that zealous representation really comes through in the fact that we all feel connected. And also, from my standpoint, I look at it, and you too, and we've talked about this many times, is that everyone deserves a chance. Everybody deserves a second chance in many cases. And the government's not going to just give somebody a second chance on their own.
So in the tax practice, there's something very similar to a criminal record, and that's a federal tax lien, right? I would say about 80% of all my clients have a federal tax lien filed in that very same clerk's office that the criminal records are kept in. And so that's sort of like their scarlet A, right? Their scarlet letter.
Those are the ones we get to work on together because they can't buy a house until they fix it.
Right, and that's actually the function of the federal tax lien, is notice to the world that they owe the money to the IRS, and that the IRS has certain statutory, rights to any money that they might come into. And so in a lot of ways, I think it's analogous to what you do for a living. And when we get an offer and compromise through, for example, which is where we make a deal to settle for less, we're able to...
You make a deal with the devil.
We're able to get that lien released.
Well, but what, and you're right, the tax lien is a notice to the world of the debt. What does an arrest record say to you? What is that notice of to the world?
Well, in today's information age, man, it's like a life sentence. It says that
you were bad.
There's almost a presumption, and I think in normal society, okay, not criminal defense lawyers or lawyers who've practiced in that area for a long time, I think there's almost in normal society, there's a presumption that you did something wrong.
But it doesn't allow people to have a fair shake with others.
Oh, no.
You're moving in across the street, you see the name, you run back in your house, and what do? You type in their name, you Google search them. What comes up, if an arrest record comes up, you've already made judgments about the person before you've even met them.
Well, and how common is this? Okay, quite frequently, in almost every case, law enforcement overcharges the individual. So back to my petty theft with a push analogy, you get charged with a robbery, it gets reduced to a petty theft because that's really what it was, and then ultimately it might even get dismissed. But hanging out there on the sheriff's website is this really bad picture of you with a charge of robbery, which is a felony.
The internet has kind of made, like, if you lived in a small town with just a handful of people, if something happens, everyone's going to know about it. And so the web and those arrest records and, all these third-party sites that have them online, that basically makes that the same for anybody, no matter what city you live in.
And that leads me into something else. If you had an arrest record that was sealed and expunged, and you type your name in, and your name appears on one of these commercial websites demanding that you pay them money to take it off, don't pay them that money. Call my office. Get the advice that's needed. Many times we can get them to take off your picture in ways that don't cost you money and ways that will do it permanently.
Is that how they make their money? Because they basically buy this data from the county, right?
And there's got to be a loophole that we're going to ask the legislature to change, because if someone has a record sealed and expunged, commercial websites should not be ransoming their booking photos to have them pay. It's a form of extortion, and it harms our clients, and it's a bad practice. Hopefully the state of Florida will correct it. If not, we're going to push them in that direction.
Let's get back to that for a second. Do those sites actually buy that data, or do they just scrape it off of the internet?
Many times they scrape it off, but also some counties have sold information that leads them to it.
Oh, wow.
Now we're selling public record.
That's scandalous.
But how does someone take a public record and then have a commercial incentive to say to you, Darrin, we want you to pay us money or we're going to keep the booking photo out there, when you have gotten the state of Florida to remove it from their websites?
Wow, I've really learned a lot today. I had no idea that was happening. Do you know which counties are doing that?
Just about all of them.
Wow. That does not sound like a good thing, and that does sound like something that the legislature should take on.
And you can see every day, ask the question, why are the county websites publishing booking photos? Where is the public interest in a booking photo?
Why are they doing it?
To
add money to their bottom line?
I think that some people think it's a deterrent to crime. I think it harms the people living in our communities, and it harms our neighborhoods, and it harms our families.
The society as a whole, I would say. Well, you're listening to the IRS Solution Attorney. We have to take a real quick break. We will be back in just a few minutes. Stick around because we're going to talk about some of these stories that you guys actually see in the field. We'll be back in a minute.
Welcome to the IRS Solution Attorney Show.
Welcome back.
Right. I'm your IRS Solution Attorney, Darrin Mish.
You've got to give stuff.
Well, it's actually not because the content isn't riveting. I mean, I'm learning a lot about arrest records that I thought I should have known, but I guess it's been a long time and things have changed, right, Jim?
And I'm your co-host, Katrina Maydwell, and in studio today we have Jim Souza, in case you missed the earlier part of the show. The whole thing will be available also on Darrin's podcast as well.
That's the IRS Problem Solver podcast on iTunes.
Anyone who is involved in any online dating.
I was going to say, we didn't talk about the dating part.
And by the way, you know who you are. Or you know who they are. It's either your friends, family members, co-workers. The online dating world is pervasive in every city in this country. And one of the things that have come up.
So that's how people meet. I've been married for 18 years, okay? And granted, I met my husband in a bar, and at the time, I never dated guys in bars, okay? So I'm just saying. So now people meet online more than any other place, right?
It's everywhere, particularly with people in that over 30 age group, over 40 age group. And one of the things that came up, and it comes up a lot, is I had an arrest record, but it was dropped. Well, what kind of case did you have? Well, it was a domestic battery case, but it was taken care of because I didn't do it. The problem is I'm involved in online dating. I've met some really nice girls, and the minute they find out my name, they're going to be able to see that I got arrested for battery. Okay,
so let me get this straight, Jim. Somebody like me, let's say I'm in the single space. I'm on these dating websites. I went out on a date with this guy, and it's starting to flow well, and I'm thinking, wow, Mr. Charming here seems too good to be true. Let me just Google him and check him out. And now he's coming up, and you're saying that you actually erase and get these records removed? What about somebody like me? If I'm a single female and I'm trying to check this person out, and they've got a domestic violence charge, how is that fair to me?
Well, it comes back to the old adage, it's a charge. Maybe it didn't happen, but are you going to give that guy a second look? Are you going to give him a second chance to explain it? Because perhaps the explanation is truthful, is honest. I didn't do it. It was an exaggeration. The police officer came. Somebody else called the police. You're not going to give that guy a chance. And who knows? That could be Prince Charming. That could be the man you spend the rest of your life with. But you're going to drop him fast when you see this sort of thing. And that's what I talked about, people judging you unfairly.
And let's face it, in that space, how many crazy psycho people are out there, really? I mean, we talked about this on my show last week. If the police get called, somebody's going to jail. That's how they look at it.
Yeah, but we're also saying, too, and I get what you're saying about who the person is. You can't seal and expunge records when you're found guilty.
That's the difference right there.
But we're also saying you're going to judge that person quickly, and you may judge them unfairly just because there's a booking photo out there.
We're running out of time here.
Exist, though.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you guys exist, really. I mean, this is what the justice system is supposed to be about. Am I not correct?
You are correct, and that's why you need special expertise to be able to deal with these kinds of situations. But we are kind of running out of time. We've been promising a war story. Jim, have you ever represented somebody who actually had convictions that you were ultimately able to get those things, thrown out or overturned and help to improve their life?
We had a young man that we represented who had a felony charge, who went through the diversion program, which offered first-time offenders a chance to clear their name. He went through the program. We started to expunge his record, but then found out that he had a traffic charge from a few years earlier, that when he was 18 years old, he went to court, paid a fine. Unfortunately, on the surface, because the judge adjudicated him of the traffic charge, he was no longer eligible. However, when he came to us, presented the situation, we saw a solution. We were able to get in front of the judge, present our case, and tell the judge the reason we needed the judge's help to take the adjudication, make it a withhold, put it in a place that allowed us to do our job, and that young man was able to restore his name and clear his name.
During the break, you were kind of telling me some stories, and without naming names, there's some judges in these local counties in this area who are really starting to understand what you're getting at, right?
I haven't had one single judge tell me no. Every single judge that I've explained what we're doing regarding sealing and expunging records has not only been sympathetic, empathetic, but they understand the public good. So when we say to judges, adjudicate sparingly, they get it. And the judges that I've spoken to in Hillsborough County have been right on point, and they understand, and they've been making the changes as to how they deal with people in their cases.
That's really great. Most judges aren't judges because they want to put people on the slammer and lock them up and ruin their lives. I mean, I think most judges are uniquely qualified to understand.
Use common sense? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and since they're dealing with crime day in and day out, they see what a prior record can do to somebody.
But the point that we make to people is don't wait 2-3 years. Don't wait beyond the effective dates. Get to us right away. If you think that your record should be sealed and expunged, contact us. Even if you don't think that you qualify, many times we're able to change that, and we're able to make it happen for you. Contact us at 813-254-9205. That's 813-254-9205. We don't charge you to talk to us. Tell us your story. If you don't want to call us, go to our website, restoremyname.net. That's restoremyname.net. Tell us, write down your situation. We'll get back in touch with you.
So we only have a couple minutes left. What do you think the big takeaway from today's show is with regard to criminal records and how they impact people's lives and getting those things, erased or removed?
Well, we're all better people if we're not hampered and hindered by anything that sets us back. Criminal records stay with people their entire lives. And sometimes criminal records should be erased and removed for deserving people. And when that happens, not only it impacts the individual, it also means that their families, their children, their parents, everyone's able to live more freely and usually more successful.
It's bad for the economy. It's bad for society. Right. It's just bad overall to have.
We didn't touch base on the kids either, because on my show we talked about how if you have a child and you want to be a volunteer for Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or a community organization, it can hinder you.
Well, even the school districts run background checks for parents to just show up on campus to volunteer to, hand out pencils or something.
What we're trying to inject is a bit of fairness into this. Is that if you don't have to explain it, you don't. In Florida, if your record is sealed or expunged, you can legally deny being arrested.
Well, that's great.
That's justice. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I've really learned a lot today, Jim.
Thank you for inviting me.
I appreciate you coming by. Hope you continue to be my friend because I value your friendship very much. And, you have my wholehearted endorsement. If anybody's out there has these kinds of problems, they should give Jim a call. They should visit his website at restoremyname.net, 813-254-9205. And while we're talking about people that help people with problems, IRS problems, don't let them linger. They don't go away on their own. Call Darrin, Mish.
The Mr. The IRS Solution Attorney Show. We got to wrap it up, guys. I'm your co-host, Katrina Madewell, Mr. Jim Sousa. We are